那个是很多我随吧，随便你们来写的，然后这个啥的，随吧写的，说这个现在你不去就问那点里啊，把现在闹的去，那去把就生哎，把你不去给什么的，原来去什么马虎啊些都行的，很去，然后都对的，那个学吧写去，啥的随便你们他先把写的。当然，最牛一个身边车上没有水草，我认为是你地水草嘛，也是，那地水嘛草那样，随便你们他清多也是，那个那些那让你身体有某个就是没当这的来啊，身这些先点起，身体有某个就是没当送这送回呢，送这也没他前面呢，那随便你们他清吧也是，啊对吧？已经没些说是个牛些个身边的些车上没有水草嘛，也是。Good
evening. Last week, continuing to look at the general outline of qualities depend on the mind, we looked at the perfections of ethics and patience. And in the presentation on patience, we saw that the measure for having perfected patience is the radical transformation of one's own mind, where one has completely abandoned this affliction of anger together with its seeds and imprints. When that has been completely abandoned, that is the measure of having perfected the training in patience. What is not required is for all the sources of all the external sources of potential anger, other ordinary sentient beings, for them to be eradicated or transformed solely for the training of the mind the mind of patience to be perfected, to be completed, requires a transformation of the mind. That is what we need to do. Not focus on eradicating external enemies, but tame and subdue our own mind. Tonight we continuing to look at how good qualities as presented through the six perfections depend on the mind. So if we looked at generosity and ethics and patience, and now we come to that of choice, perseverance. And this too, the perfecting or completing of this development of this good quality depends on transforming the mind. Verse 7. Joyous or enthusiastic perseverance is usually defined as a mind that takes delight in virtue. So whatever the object is, which may well be another consciousness, another mental factor perhaps, or an external object, whatever it may be, one is engaging with this in virtuous activity with delight. This then is the meaning or the definition of choice perseverance.
삼바지요와 어디 딱 전주에서 심리치 어디와.
Here, the presentation is slightly different, whereas joyous perseverance is presented as a specific mental factor, that of intention. Intention being one of the 5 omnipresent mental factors.
조화스는 가와세 주로다 기위체제 이텔리아 가와세 조화세 고라 당시 디니게 냐치 칼라라 가야다 제모라 가야지 디니게 조에 셈바 쇼로 이즈다네 준주제다 말에세네 디니시오네 그 만주 다디 저주시 지장 만주기 지된해야 돼요데 야로 준주시 오래세 비시시에도 용거를 이나 당하는 주기 다데 기위가 개워주다 미개와 세대 이나는 준주 시에도 당주 다디 최이냐 메니가 준주 시에도 전에다 주 개와 유 개워지를 주의 삼을 지고 셈바도 고마도 유 개와 마인 비기 최 아니 지거지 해 지티비지야라 가와 용으로 왔네 그거티네 계속 전에 말해서다 이제 준주 시에도 유지 개와지를 고래서
This term joyous perseverance, so this term translated as joy or enthusiasm or delight or even to stretch happiness, this is something that we use in our everyday context in a variety of settings. If we engaging in some form of entertainment, watching a show or watching sport, we will experience quite some joy. So, or maybe we're spending time with our friends or having a delicious meal, having a good time, we'll experience joy or take delight. So, and with the way someone may engage in their job, they may use this term there as well, that they engage in their job or some kind of activity, and they did so with enthusiasm or delight. But this is unlikely to be the correct usage of this particular Dharma term, because in the Dharma context, the term enthusiastic or joyous perseverance, this is used specifically towards a virtuous activity. So the object of this mind of joyous perseverance necessarily is one of virtue. If it's not one necessarily of virtue, it cannot be called joyous perseverance.
심설 직기 제우강 창라 소바 임바따라 유가 제비 제우망 근데 쥐바 셴비 that means.
So we come to the 15th verse. So in light of what Geshe just said about the joyous perseverance being this mental factor of intention, I'll just change the first line. A clear intention alone produces results, such as the state of Brahma and beyond. The result of physical and verbal acts alone are not like that, due to conduct being weak and feeble.
Again? And in a sem las ne jebugang mala soba imbatarese. 苍老说吧，因吧，特别是他第一个所看的生活，甚至是他sem对于sem与那对于sem少吧，是对对，对于sem少是对就是颠簸了去，如果他对于sem颠吧，对于sem少吧，这对他这也吧，是对他那个说那么的第一个说结尾呢，听不清楚个去年们个需要的，讲究sem节他们节。대화의 tema 심제 동안에 대비시도 심제 탐지선이 근데 산요고만 토벌 자원인 비게다 제주 심기 군이랑 제 다디 심제 탐지기도 산요고만 투비 치료도 냠는 제기에서비 되니기 전주의 대비관에 대안에 심제 탐지기도 산요고만 투비 치료도 동반이 투비 셰랍다 냠바 예지 냠샤티 동반이 투비 셰랍디 권내 고텔비 동이 투비 셰랍데 배치 권미에 조심 TV 전주기 때문에 토네 공제 냠내 제가 이나아서다 이게 냠내 집이 디고들 가용구리에서나 셈세 직계 제부 강스 가용구리에서나 안디기에는 상발로서 봐 상발소라 임바 들으시듯 상바시든 Bendigo Changse Changba ni Koya Kashi, that Captain Tambo, Sangele, Kovaina, Bendigo Yamin Chabala, Tinida, Sendri, Shedap, Yamsayo, Kovan, to be chosen Tamji, the changes in Yukunia Lange, Nasayo Kovana, to be Chedo, Sendri Jeje, don't want you to be shut up, Yamin Jeba, Yamin Cheba in the Dio Combo, Yamin Tarchim Jevodi, Nasayo Kovat, such.
Within that deep tongue,
Chang said, Chidang, that I think that Dambo Chang said the Sangil Pachan she was that. Near Disanada. Chang said to Koya Mongolis, Dambo made a shekar was in it, and you see you Gunia Lade, and then Sanjo Koba to which you don't want you to be shut up, net near how to from the Delia. Yaman Betuchi, Fedrici, and Yaman Chevaina, and the Gawatis in it, no more. Bacha that your bunch is Sanjo about 2 grades, so socks it in a Mongola. Now was Sanjo about 2 grades, said or do Shantisha.
So reading the first line again with the altered translation and just remembering that in this context, the word translated as intention means joyous perseverance. So a clear intention alone produces results, such as the state of Brahma and beyond. So there are different ways that one can understand these 2 lines. So here, firstly, we should be clear that this is referring to a bodhisattva, so a practitioner who has generated the determination to become a Buddha in order to lead all sentient beings to attain a state liberated from suffering. And engaging in the various activities, in particular the meditation on emptiness, they do so with joyous or enthusiastic perseverance. So they take a delight in this virtuous object, which is the realization of emptiness. So this is an illustration of a virtuous object, emptiness, that the bodhisattva is cultivating in meditation. And this is, and doing so with joyous perseverance. And furthermore, for the first line, a clear mind, a clear intention alone. So this we should understand to refer to a mind of enthusiastic perseverance that is stable and is stable. So it's not just a fleeting joyous perseverance, but one that is stable. So such a mind then produces, second line, produces results such as the states of Brahma and beyond. So this Brahma and beyond, or Brahma and so forth, this again can be understood in many ways. So first we should understand such as the state of Buddhahood and so forth and beyond. Then this refers to the various trainings in which the Bodhisattva engages with enthusiastic perseverance. In particular, that of the Bodhisattva meditating on emptiness, because it's through this combination of bodhicitta in the mind of the Bodhisattva, realizing emptiness, that Buddhahood, the desired goal, will be achieved. Moreover, the and beyond and so forth, we can understand to refer to the various other trainings that the Bodhisattva will engage in with joyous perseverance, trainings such as generosity, ethics, patience, and so forth.
제자들이 다 동반이 도비기 신라성들이 띵엔진데려야 아니 대대기 대냠는 제도기 아니 지게 전적이 한 제제 대냠는 제발에 되네 안타도 뭐 바차다 제가 방아제네 창파 산지고 것도 두래야지 원도신 나고도신 대신 접시나 어디
If we should understand in the first 2 lines, in brief, that a bodhisattva meditating with enthusiastic perseverance, so that's the meaning of a clear intention alone, will produce the result of enlightenment. That will be the meaning of the second goal, the second line. So the desired result that the bodhisattva seeks is achieved through meditating, through cultivating the meditative equipoise, realizing emptiness, conjoined with enthusiastic perseverance. that will lead to the abandonment of the afflictions together with their seeds and imprints. So the presentation I've given thus far is the Bodhisattva is striving with enthusiastic perseverance to abandon the afflictions together with their seeds and imprints through meditating on empty or cultivating the meditative equipoise realizing emptiness, because it's these two, bodhicitta and the realization of emptiness, that will lead to the abandonment of the afflictions, the seeds of the afflictions, and the stains of those seeds. There's another way that this can be presented. Not talking about now the wisdom realizing emptiness, but that of powerful concentration conjoined with joyous perseverance. What will the result of that be? And that will be rebirth in a God realm of the form or formless realms. So the term Brahma, it is a name of a God realm, but it's not a proper. If it's not a proper noun, translated as another word, it would be as whole or complete. So then it results in complete states or whole states, which would refer to attaining rebirth in a God realm of the form or formless realms. That is what will follow from engaging in powerful concentration together with joyous perseverance. So then I've presented two ways that we can understand the first two lines. So I'll recap those two and then present a third way. So the translation of the first line, which has been changed, a clear intention alone produces results, such as the state of Brahma, and so forth, is probably better than and beyond, and so forth. So the way to understand this is in threefold. So to recap the two covered, meditating with joyous perseverance on emptiness. So there the Bodhisattva will be produce the result of Buddhahood. So this is be Brahma and beyond, so Brahma and so forth. So the final result of Buddhahood will come from the Bodhisattva meditating on wisdom directly realizing emptiness together with joyous perseverance. The alternative understanding is in relation to meditating with joyous perseverance with powerful concentration meditation. And that will lead to rebirth in a God realm, and God realm within the form or formless realms. Third way that one can understand so again, this Brahma and beyond, or Brahma and so forth, would be the non-bodhisattva meditating with joyous perseverance, realizing selflessness directly, and thereby attaining the end result of the state of becoming an arhat.
Dala Karis Wars and then the Zendri Shiga, Sungursa, and Zendri said, the Penang thing is in the chick, Delia, draw a draw Magina, and Chicket, thing is in Committee, do Gong Marwa, the Mom, do travel to Marise. The thing is in the draw here, and draw it here, Chick Tembush, Mutine, Gogurmatagic, there's the Agic, Shashabana, to two Marise. Is that Dala as a game? 在讲究是有过那个浪节，东方印度别个希腊son对了也别这多节节的针多节针对的目的些，那这个定不起那些，那呀这个公本人呢，那上就都通过了，要么把这的去吧，往通过的也是。那你呢，现在这个定义性的呀，你这个这个定义性的。在sem那边要么不少数旅游的差别个差不老说吧啊。 干的什么定义真的别呀，我来是什么定义真的了呀？这搞好解决别，搞好去做解决，的呢，目的是针对解决，公平呢，给我起码我这个帮，可是我的差别，这个帮看我妈的解读的什么的，那目的是么我们呢？你们这你到这你干嘛这边，这个主图嘛的这个过，等到了针对给的那个定义上公平台了呀，做解。 做点就点目的是公我的是，因为目的我的是，目的嘛我白那中间图嘛的是目的公我的是，目的公把就公把他亲白那，有么把下的就帮手白那，那针对一发现他亲把结果的也是，其实他这里也是针对谁的做先比预确的了，对于什么可能改为什么的的，那我的是的。
Before recapping, just to represent where we are in this chapter, is we're looking at the qualities that we're looking at. All good qualities depend on the mind, and this is being presented by Shantideva through looking at the 6 perfections. And now we're at the 4th perfection, that of joyous or enthusiastic perseverance. How does that then become completed or perfected? So we've been looking thus far in terms of patience and ethics and generosity, that they're perfection or completion of our training in these practices depends on our mind, not in the change of the transformation of the outer circumstances. So too, to complete our training in joyous perseverance, we need to radically transform our mind. So in this presentation, I've presented differing goals. The primary goal, because we're in the context of the Bodhisattva, is the goal of enlightenment, of Buddhahood itself. But this is applicable to other goals, whether they are the attainment of rebirth in the formal formless realm or the state of arhatship. In that, to achieve these goals requires enthusiasm in one's perseverance in virtue. One's endeavors cannot be sporadic. They cannot be occasional. There have to be continuous perseverance. And one needs to take delight or be enthusiastic about one's endeavors. One needs to see this training as something pleasurable that one wants to engage in. In this way, when one's cultivating concentration, one will be able to develop the various levels of samadhi that are required to attain birth in the formal formless realm. So for that, one requires enthusiastic perseverance. But for the actual goal here of enlightenment, one requires enthusiastic perseverance for that cultivation of bodhicitta, as well as the wisdom directly realizing emptiness. Being enthusiastic about meditating on, in this instance, the wisdom realizing reality, is required in order to come to realize emptiness, then to realize it inferentially, then directly, and able to abandon the various levels of subtlety of the afflictions, together with their seeds, and eventually the stains of those seeds. So all of this comes about through cultivating various good qualities conjoined with enthusiasm and perseverance. And this is how one completes one's training in joyous perseverance through, in the context of the Bodhisattva, the attainment of the goal of enlightenment. Mind of enthusiastic perseverance, a mind that delights in virtue and has this concept of a quality of perseverance in that one continuously engages in cultivating this virtuous object that one takes such delight in. This has as its primary obstacle various forms of laziness. It's our laziness that prevents us from developing stable, enthusiastic perseverance. To overcome laziness, one needs to reflect on the qualities of what it is, the good qualities of what it is that one is thinking to cultivate. And one needs to think deeply, repeatedly over a sustained period about the qualities of this particular virtuous state you want to achieve. Imagine what it would be like to attain such a state. Imagine the impact you'd have on others. In particular here, in the context of the Bodhisattva's way of life, the practitioner will meditate on the benefits of enlightenment or Buddhahood, recognizing how remarkable it would be to be such a being, in terms of oneself, one's own personal benefits, but in particular, the impact one could have on countless beings for the rest of time. And then developing a yearning to become a Buddha, one reflects on the good qualities of the many stages of training, particularly those that are most needed for oneself then and there. So one may reflect on the many good qualities of coming to understand and eventually realize emptiness, many good qualities that will come from developing single-pointed concentration, particularly the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. Coming to recognize just that, what that will mean for oneself, to have physical and mental pliancy, where one's body is always comfortable, one's mind is comfortable and at ease. In other words, one doesn't have physical impediments to meditation. One's mind isn't dull and sluggish, so one doesn't have that kind of mental impediment to meditation. So here in this presentation, just a few of the good qualities are briefly being mentioned, but here one needs to reflect on them again and again so as to give rise to a deep burning to attain this result. Thinking that, for example, when one develops the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, one can strive for and attain a rebirth in a pure land or in the form and formless realm, thereby abide in a place free of conflicts, free of illness. And in terms of the hardships one has encountered and observed in this life, one will be free of those. And then one can focus on one's Dharma practice. What one is doing by reflecting on the benefits of these potential goals, is to develop this burning enthusiasm, which arises in enthusiastic perseverance, where one becomes enthusiastic about achieving the goals. And therefore, one engages with perseverance in cultivating the causes that lead to those goals. This means that one is able to persevere in one's study and meditation, letting go of the current distractions, our current mental obsessions, these various activities that consume our time. We let go of them with ease. We let go of them in a way that's lasting. In this way, we are able to persevere with enthusiasm in cultivating these various good qualities. Then laziness has been abandoned, and one can rapidly spiritually develop.
And another that Kyoka do in a Kyawati Duek Kyawachi to be some of the Danium that to do a cherry about a Chagurvada, Neshuksham, that in it that I'm to do some died, and another machine and down to get giving Yamlet, Woodes and Big that Sanji phone chain, the Tibet, Tiayuba. Checking Yamlenchia about Ujajan, Woodes and Big cow, Chiki Woodes and Big Dini, and there's some Tavada, and Digi in Bacha, Shaya, and Digi to get some of the competitor, Tabata Tamji, Koban to a tiny to the Sembeke, next in some Tavana, in the Kawachi, Hegi, Jelian, to be somebody, Chili, or the nigger to be somebody, which Woodes and Big, that to be somebody, Yale, Yado, some Tavana, yet said you should share. You were church, and the nigger now to get that thing is some matter with the house to go at Jevalea, to send and then any jiggy pando or some diet, now by Netalian, pay our in the car combined it, or 20 key. I checked in Yahweh Summit, Yana and the Tini Mujiki chicken sipping yam and chicken summit, some dominant, it's only more with I get about your order.
To develop any virtuous quality requires enthusiastic perseverance, because what one is trying to do is develop a new habituation, a deep familiarity with a new way of thinking, a new way of engaging with the world. So this is something, many of these good qualities will be very new for us across the span of lifetimes. They'll be very new for us, which means we do need to persevere at them for a sustained period. And if this perseverance is hard work and is unpleasant, it will not be sustained. Moreover, if our perseverance is hard work, something we're forced to do, our mind will be closed. It will not be open, and therefore will not grow and flourish. So therefore it's imperative we think again and again about the many qualities of these various states we look to achieve. In particular, where we are in our own spiritual development, think of that impact it would have on us, what it would be like to have that particular quality, what it would be like to move through the rest of this life with that quality, and the impact it will have for lifetimes to come. Then when one generates some enthusiasm there, then think about the impact it will have on you, those that you care about, and thereafter on all others. In this way, one develops a joy and an enthusiasm to develop these various qualities. So, for example, hearing teachings. When one has the opportunity and embraces that opportunity, think about the many benefits that come from hearing and thinking about the Dharma. Every time you hear a teaching, you aren't only hearing it, you are reflecting on it. You're thinking about its meaning. Generate joy. Add your virtue that led you to embrace this opportunity, recognizing that by doing so, particularly with a joyous mind, it becomes ever easier to do so. One will embrace these opportunities and recognize the impact that will have on you in lives to come. How much easier it will be to meet the Dharma, and when one does, to embrace it wholeheartedly. And that through this very process of engaging with joy in the Dharma, this is how one will eventually become a Buddha. And prior to that, become a Bodhisattva. And prior to that, develop single-pointed concentration. All these great qualities will come through engaging in the Dharma with enthusiasm, with delight.
Alright, and then you know GP Jiwuyang, Jevashim, the Dami, Sidan, you can get out to it, Mario can get out to Egeda, get out to him, what in Eda, is she don't buy you let me be here, don't buy you she loves Fundelia, she is from the thing is in Elia, Dorje, Combaina, and the Terbico, Turbin, and Jikiko to Toriada, and the thing is in the Dorje, Combaina, Chima. And this happy Ladam as a Pamomaki to you, in a war was. And you are GB to go as the thing is in that Matimache, and to you the Magi when you go to your will go on with the detail with it. That the Niki Kawadi, the Niki Lumagi, JP Kawa, the pay new choice or indeed that means that you come Goma and Sudan Sumiko like Kitu Mare. Tarabata Tamjiki Moko to 2 months old. And again, thing is in there, really Semba Mevachi, and the Chigi, Chinane, like you know, you get out to it again. To what some ye, and it, Kaso, thing is in Congo Marwa, Mogumbaza, and the Kiwa, as Chimong, Tadami, Asolana Missina. Kyo Konkam Suda from like you 2 Mare, and the Tamjis, Tabat Tamjiki Moko to 2 Mares, that means 2 Mares.
Shantideva concludes with these 2 lines. The results of physical and verbal acts alone are not like that due to conduct being weak and feeble. What's being referred to in the first 2 lines is the many benefits that will come through cultivating the union of calm abiding meditative insight, which requires enthusiastic perseverance to bring about. Good results such as a mundane and ordinary result of birth in the form and formless realm, or it can lead to the supramundane, full and complete enlightenment through developing bodhicitta and the wisdom directly realizing emptiness. That is what can be achieved as long as one has persevered and cultivated the union of calm abiding meditative insight. If one hasn't cultivated that excellent mind, one can certainly still engage in the cultivation of virtue, and it is essential that one does. But the 3rd and 4th line, the results in physical and verbal acts alone. So these will be physical and verbal acts. They are motivated, but they are not conjoined with the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. So this is what the 3rd and 4th line is referring to. Acts that lack the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. They cannot produce such results. They are not like that, due to being weak and feeble. What is weak and feeble? It is the mind that is motivating these physical and verbal acts. that mind is weak because it does not have the strength of the union of calm abiding. And it's feeble because it doesn't have that analytical insight of meditative insight. Therefore, any acts without that strength of motivating mind are weak and feeble and cannot lead to even an excellent rebirth in a fallen formless realms, let alone the attainment of bodhicitta, liberation, or enlightenment.
maybe that she name out to be she name it, things in Kawaka to be net, you are the new chunjuma to your mares. And that has more than that on the things in to Galia, things in the antique to be a delia, and chicken. Better than things into Korea, things in Troops and things in Delia, and it generally basis Fenishana, Comba, Kum Korea said, or the road is more than in English.
So the summary of this verse is of these two lines is just this. Without the union of calm abiding meditative insight, all virtue that we accrue is inadequate to achieve our goals because it is weak and feeble. Therefore, we need to strive with enthusiasm and perseverance to cultivate calm abiding.
Under the knowledge of the to Semnia to Shine, Ralia Pares, I didn't see that some days at us. I didn't do this sooner, some days at the Sem Ralia Pares. The day is that this sooner to the Geshe Thubten Rabten Yunri do so Geshe Yang, Semishe Yewe, Jebani, Dini repeat me songs.
Thus, in the 15th verse, Shantideva has shown how enthusiastic perseverance also depends on the mind. In other words, bringing it to completion depends on the mind. So too with the perfection of calm abiding. Now we come to the 16th verse. All verbal recitations and physical ascetic practices, even if done for a very long time, but with the mind wandering, distracted elsewhere, do not achieve their aim, the knower of reality taught.
That is you done you need to Geshe Yang Sedida, as a Semishe Yewe, Jebani, Dini repeat to me songs that Kasu City on the game. A Dinzi Mahomaj Mevache, she need the things in Mevache, and I do it chicken Saya down, the negate chicken down the Saya, in it in DJ said. Then you got to see the Gatos in the next, Desaruchna, Goroja, Kalain, Goroja, then again, chicken, Duroina, Gora, Chichene, that chicken, and the Jiggy, that Tinigi, Anjaki, Geshe Thubten Rabten, the Nigi, Yamna Chach, Murvada, in the city. The nature of the Union with the Anna, Nimichi, remember, you knew Bush, Chevan, the Roman Bush, Chevy, you need to Geshe Yang. 네, 디기 저기 할바다 탐지세벽과 토투 말레스 감고메기 안을 수수메에 기투 말레스 안에 탈비고와 토투고 말 탐지기벽과 토투 말레스 월데 is that Geshe Thubten Rabten Yunri to Geshe Yang said.
If one engages in the accumulation of virtue through things such as verbal recitations, for example, reciting mantras, reciting prayers with good intent, and so forth, as well as physical ascetic practices, such as living a simple and humble life so as to reduce one's needs and thereby give one more time to focus on cultivating the Dharma. So one lives in a simple home with simple food and clothing. One may strive in one's Dharma practice, reciting mantra and so forth. But even if one does so, the second line, for a very long time, one will not be achieving causes that are powerful enough to actually lead to the goal of the attainment of enlightenment or liberation.
Chisa things in maybe Simshe Evi, Jabani, Simshem, but Duel, Nam, December, Namia Cheje, and Duel, Chane, and Chige Sem Dushinet, Sem number Yanches, Chebanza, things your mares, things in Babares, Chisa do things in Baba Carson, Sem Duel, you churl, Yang, this. Yambaza, the Niki Wachibadida. Niba Chunchuma, your Maris, Chesandinisa, things in Mabada, things in Mabazada, Dustin, things in baby and disorder, Simje, Jevani, Chesa, you teach Nene, Comba Mayimba, Sim Namdo, the you, Dama, some Yangche, and to Yangche, Lucian, Jeba Inza, and the thing is in Yunga Marwasu.
And the reason why one's attempts at virtue will not lead to the desired result is because, as you see in the third line, our mind wanders. It's distracted elsewhere. We're trying to engage in virtue through engaging in analytical meditation, reciting prayers, reciting mantra, but our mind is constantly distracted. This means our motivation is weak, our engagement with our meditation is weak, and therefore the virtue that's accumulated is inadequate. So this is what happens when one is trying to cultivate virtue, but it is yet to have attained samadhi, powerful single-pointed concentration.
And
whilst those who lack single-pointed concentration need to engage in these acts, such as verbal recitations, to accumulate virtue, it will not lead to the desired goal because of the lack of samadhi. And that is the reason now, the fourth line, that the aim is not achieved. And this is something that the Buddha himself said. So the Buddha here is referred to by the term, the knower of reality. The knower of reality, the Buddha himself said, as long as your mind wanders from the virtuous object, is so easily distracted elsewhere, your virtue will remain inadequate.
그래서 다 뇌미의 송스, 뇌미의 송스, 단다 기도 말에 세디 사오기는 말에서는 순고 말에 자 뇌미의 송스디 뇌인데 가래서는 안아지기 뇌인데 가래 안아서 심제 안아지기 다다 님보디 가래라나 네 담지기 왜 산yok 못해야 안에 탈바 녀모바 와체 녀모 방제 띵이도 못해야 동화잖아 자 자원이 뭐고에 띵이 대화디 토야디 당아서 뇌인보 디주와서 된다 소고 제자야한테 탈바 된다 대화 탈도 산지고 봐다 안내를 자주메지고 토야디 아주 요콜베 동화 타다 주의제 탈비고 봐 토야다 탈도 함지기 먹고 봐 토야디 아주 단단닝보데 아주 고해 티에서 섬전데 제자다 니네기 띵진 신의 마주바지 띵진 매배 토는 개와 기주 융화까지 깔래가 제기까지 제제 기주 두번 있나요 제자다 다음에 봐 또비기 띵지 검제 띵진 매나 얘네 영어 봐도 봐. 아마도 왜나 저기 단다 두고야지 단다 탈바다 탐지기 먹고 봐. 단다디 두고 말해서 메시지한테 데려고 버다 단다 메시지 탈바다 탐지기 먹 단다 뉴보디 맞아 단다 두고 말해서 디 단다 요 말해서 데려 주비 뉴바 단다디 된디 두투 뉴바디 요 말해서 요 메시지 or
again, as now commenting on the fourth line, so that on the first half of the fourth line, because this can be translated in different ways. So how it's been translated, do not achieve their aim, is correct. So this is the correct way to translate it. Another way you could translate this instead of aim or goal would be as are meaningless or have no purpose. So this wouldn't be the correct translation here, because it's not that if one hasn't developed samatha, that one should not be engaging in verbal recitations or other virtuous practices, because the virtue is weak. One needs to engage in these despite virtue being weak, but one needs to set about and achieve the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. So the translation here is correct. It gives across the proper meaning. But as long as one lacks the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, one's endeavors will not lead to the desired goal, the goal of either liberation from cyclic existence for oneself or enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. For those goals to be achieved, one has to develop not only the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, but they need to realize emptiness. This is imperative in order to achieve one's aims.
안디네 다다이 메한지게 인진 메나야 시네 좀 메나야 언저게 대개슈 균요고 두바이나 지사디게 네 세델이나 디유야 다 개와치마이네 너무 가서게 들이 동알레 타르치 한원디오 고마 토두바디 용고로 받아 지산된 나자오기니 메바 마르 받는다 여러 받아 나다 되메세 된 체중이 나네다 된 첨보디 두두마 된 첨보요 정말 땡이지 니네게 메비기 안에 계셔 가지 두베네 다 첨보디 두고 말해 사시고 거다.
To be very clear, without the union of calm abiding meditative insight, one can and does accumulate excellent stores of virtue that will lead to a further wonderful rebirth such as we've achieved in this life. And not only that virtue accrued will help in one's progression towards becoming a bodhisattva and becoming a Buddha. But it cannot lead to the attainment of bodhicitta or Buddhahood. For one's virtue to have that power and strength has to be accumulated with a mind which is the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. Only then does one have the strength of one's insight to be able to accrue the virtue, the amount of virtue that is required.
Tingi shine meba je kisho kaso dubne that pando yo mara sanyi songdo danda yo mara songdo asamji tingi tsing tara danda me set meba zam ko wina tingi aji kisho ma je me sha se ni ga yo da de sanyi songse danda yo mara songse da tingi zime ne kisho tu yo mara se tunne pando yo mara samne da si ru ba chisa de me se de danda kini yo mara songdo mara chisa tingi za danda yo res ine da tun chenbo de In case
any of the translations you're looking at have this fourth line translated as are meaningless or are purposeless, do not take that literally. So this is what Ken is saying now. That is not the actual meaning. Meaning is as translated here. They do not achieve your goal or your aim, but they certainly are with meaning. They certainly are with purpose, because the virtue that you have accumulated and you've made such efforts to accumulate, this is indispensable to have good rebirths and to progress towards enlightenment. That one needs to be very clear. It will not lead to the attainment of the final goal without the union of calm abiding and meditative insight.
And in the things in Madrid maybe that you put in the market. Geshe Thubten Rabten to Mare Sunde. Di Dandala Ningbo den Dinaola person Gorasen is that Harvard and Tanji can be about Tobala, Inji Mejiting is and Drubu or Chesating is someday things in Drupche, Senior Druptine, Omjet, things in Drupche, Sem Namingi, Mondo Basova, and the Chige. You tell me, say she do any things in the Drupshila from the Drubu or as I word. Dear Drupchen Yaman, Senamato. 탈바트 지기 보고 투투고 말체사 탈바트 틈지기 먹고 봐봐 인지 메지 딩에진 공고리에서 딩에진 두고리 딩에진 두게 이네 남에 발음 이비 딩에진 실라선도 검증하면지 탈바트 지기고 투고리인지 메다 딩에진 두고 오래 사지 송월.
The vast store of virtue accumulated by acts of body and speech, as we saw in the previous verse. So meaning that those acts which are motivated by a mind that is not the union of calm abiding meditative insight, that virtue accumulated over many lifetimes is indispensable. It's brought us this far and will carry us further to another excellent rebirth. but it cannot lead to the attainment of liberation and enlightenment until this virtue that we have accumulated is utilized to bring about the development of the union of common body and meditative insight. Only then will one be able to accumulate the vast stores of virtue that are required to come to realize emptiness. And the realization of emptiness too requires a union of common body and meditative insight. So to be very clear, the virtue we've accumulated is with great purpose, is of great meaning. But we need to set our hearts on eventually cultivating calm abiding. Then we'll have a powerful enough mind to come to realize emptiness. And without realizing emptiness, liberation and enlightenment become a mere expression of aspiration. They are far out of reach. This brings us to the very chapter we are looking at. So having heard now how indispensable it is to develop single-pointed concentration conjoined with meditative insight, the wish you may have to do so, to actualize that wish, requires the mind of vigilance with its companion of mindfulness. So in the way that you're being guided in this chapter, train these two minds, mindfulness and vigilance, develop their strength, develop your familiarity with them, because these are the two indispensable minds that are required to develop good qualities, such as the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. Now, Shantideva brings us to the sixth of the perfections again, showing how the completion of our training in a perfection depends on training the mind. Within the overall section of qualities depend on the mind. So the 17th verse, due to that, if the supreme meaning of the Dharma, the secret of the mind, remains unknown, then, although wishing to attain happiness and destroy suffering, they will wander without meaning or purpose.
and the simge sang di ma she na se de che sa simge chue nam yu cho and simge sang se de na ji ge sang se de dong ba yi de guo re she sa sang se de dong ba yi nie de mi ru wa la ya ma she din de mi ru wa sa wa dong ba yi xie ma cho ba ke me ling de ma she ba je sa ma she ba de sa wa bie ba so de sang wa so che sa sang se simge sang de de ne gi dong ba yi de and ne ra shi yu tu pe dong yi sang wa Bendigo nue mi ru la, nue de mi ru wa la, dian ma cho ba sang wa chen ne. And that nue de ru wa la, dian cho pe ke Bendigo sem ge sa dong ba ni di, ne do hu gu yes. Di ma do ba ina, ne a so de, ang zu ge. Na tar ba nyo mo be, nyo wa sang ji gu ma to ba la, tar ba tam ji gu ma to ba la, so wa ba bang we de nyo mo ba de. Chi de nyo mo be nyen bo di de yes wa da.
And look in the first line, due to that, if the supreme meaning of the Dharma, the supreme meaning of the Dharma, the very meaning that the Buddha guided his students towards, the meaning behind all the teachings he gave, was to help beings come to understand reality. And this is because the great goals of the Dharma, complete liberation from psychic existence or that of Buddhahood, require the wisdom directly realizing emptiness. That is the supreme meaning of the Dharma. Then the second line, the secret of the mind. So this also refers to emptiness. So why is emptiness here, the secret of the mind or the mind's secret? Why is it said to be secret? And that is because emptiness or reality should be taught to those for whom it is not too radical. Because there are some who would hear about the presentation on reality and it would be so radical for them that they would have an adverse reaction. They would be repelled from the benefit the Dharma could otherwise bring to them. And so for them, it is unsuitable, or for them, they are unsuitable to be taught the presentation on emptiness. So this is the meaning then of the usage of the term secret, the secret of the mind. And if the secret of the mind, so emptiness, remains unknown, then suffering cannot be abandoned. One cannot achieve liberation from suffering because one needs to know the secret of the mind. One needs to know emptiness in order to abandon the afflictions together with their seeds. Without that, liberation and enlightenment remain impossible.
Ada denige sawase tongbo yin semji sawa da bidu azu yuda semja tamji ki sem rashimi ki be azu semji shanshin tu tongbe tongba rang chasan gyule semji tamji gyule yede ba yin da azu ki to ma so ba be ja sawa na shin be sha ba na je azu to ma to ba le sa ji da dang azu ka to wasne semji rashin ar su su ra semji rashin 다음에 봐 동반이 심기된 동반이 또 고리 랑게 심기 동반이 다시 동반이 또 고리에서 이마도 바이나 영모보 방투고 말아서 마도 바인상 아주 대답 동어 셔도야 대답 되면 이날 참세도 되네 아주기 가소래 가소래 아주 대화토바 되고 그래서 누가지 매봐서 봐 되고요 아 되고 그래서 뒤에지나 아주기 동반이 또 비셔람 하고 맞지 개화신 개화까지 두배 이내양 제가 영모 바투고 말아서 마도 바인상 아주기 개화 두지데 대화 뒤 동아방 말 뒤에 진행하 저기 저기 개화 두고 이내 개화 두배 이나 대다 되메이도 기나 참신데 제자다 대지 되메시도 대신하지 않아주기 된다니 뭐 하래서는 탈도 영모 바야 탈바 탐지기 벽고 어떠야지 덮투고 말해서 아니 된다 충충 질이야 이날 참세 이날선데다 충충 질이야 늘 하죠 두스티고 어래지 제자도 되는 인도스 거래
In the second line then, I explained the meaning of the word secret, but why in particular towards the mind? So the mind is also empty of inherent existence, or to use some synonyms, empty of natural existence. The mind too doesn't exist by way of its own nature. And this, to us, is hidden. And therefore it is likened to a secret in that it's something that is knowable, but to us, it is unknown. What is unknown to us, what is knowable but unknown to us, is that our mind is empty of natural existence, doesn't exist by way of its own nature. And without realizing the empty, that our mind is empty, then the third line, although wishing to attain happiness and destroy suffering. So this is the heartfelt wish of all beings. But until one comes to realize emptiness, whatever virtuous endeavors one engages in, one will not be able to destroy suffering because one hasn't destroyed causes of suffering. The afflictions will still continue to torment us, and they will do so until they are abandoned. And until they are abandoned, we will continue, fourth line, to wander without meaning or purpose. So here, What's translated as meaning or purpose is the same word as above, that of aim, without aim. And so the meaning here of this fourth line is that whilst beings will yearn to achieve the great goal of the Dharma, the supreme meaning of the Dharma, they will not achieve the supreme meaning of the Dharma. In this way, they are wandering without meaning or purpose. So, of course, striving to accumulate virtue, yearning to come to realize emptiness, but have not yet, then one will be achieving meaning and purpose in one's life, but not the supreme meaning.
And in the 다음에 또 비기 동방이 또 비셔럽 마고마이나 아니 데네 콤바sam기 네 단내니고 동아 탐제단 자와다 땡이 되와 털바다 탐제시 보고봐 톱투야리요 말이에스 비기 니고요 말에 되메 제사 데니기 톱도나 친구도 줍태기 니고 매바레 제사 줍투고 말에 제사 데네자 기너를 참시도 데니기다 지단 개와 충주지 얌는 개술도 두고 할때 대대 나 충주지래 도스코 하디고 그래서 충주 세대다 띵이대와 탈바다 탐지 캠보고 황 대래 네 되네 충주 사대로 받아서 개와 제목만 되고 받아 대 이마도 도도야 매로 받아 탈바에 도도야 매로 와 제사데 탈바다 탐지 캠보고 받는데 나 충주 인자다 이날 참세대 나니 부디스 월 제사다 나질레 다음에 또 비셔럽 곰제 띵이 좀 다음에 또 비셔럽 곰제 근데야做人给心机点多，心机点个群意，那东巴你的米就光切，还光切有么个帮助，他把他们这个个话透过了嘛多，的东巴你嘛多把切，这个他把他们这个个话推等到了呀，就尽把的出人时候针对给我主把什么好推要嘛的是，那就是么的。
Just before I give again this explanation, so in the previous verse, in the fourth line, the word I translated as aim, and I was saying doesn't mean not without purpose, without meaning. So the same Tibetan word is here in our first line in the 17th verse, translated as meaning, and then again translated in the fourth line as meaning and purpose. So bear in mind, because I'll use different terms now. The same Tibetan word can be translated as meaning, purpose, goal, aim, objective. So in English, they're a little different depending on the context, or they can carry a different flavor. So I'll need to use more of them now to translate what Genna said. So meaning, purpose, goal, aim, objective. Now to what Genna has just said, to summarize the 17th verse. So engaging in practices such as generosity, ethical restraint, patience, joyous perseverance, and concentration, all are indispensable in terms of accumulating virtue and enabling us to progress towards attaining the lasting happiness of enlightenment. But those 5 practices, if done without the wisdom realizing emptiness, will only lead to, fourth line, small goals or minor purposes being achieved. They will, such as, for example, excellent rebirths. Excellent rebirths will come about in dependence on developing those prior causes, but they'll only lead to such minor goals or purposes being achieved. They will not, those practices, without the wisdom realizing emptiness, will not lead to the great goal of liberation be achieved, or the supreme goal, now first line, the supreme goal or meaning of the Dharma being achieved, in other words, Buddhahood. That will not be achieved. So therefore, the practices prior to this, the previous 5, have to be cultivated. But do not just allow yourselves to strive there, strive in those. Set yourself on cultivating the causes to develop the wisdom realizing emptiness, which requires the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. So set yourself on the course to develop those sets of causes that will lead to calm abiding and the wisdom realizing emptiness. Without the wisdom realizing emptiness held by calm abiding, the other causes will not be strong enough to enable us to achieve the actual meaning or purpose of the Dharma. Good. Brief then. The meaning of the 17th verse is it's indispensable that we cultivate the wisdom realizing emptiness. To do so, we need to accumulate a lot of virtue. Therefore, we need to engage in the other practices that are presented. But we need to be very clear that the other virtuous minds that still are indispensable to cultivate, they alone cannot lead to the purpose of the Buddha Dharma, the end of each being's suffering being achieved. And that is the supreme meaning of the Dharma, beings attaining freedom from suffering. That cannot be achieved without the wisdom realizing emptiness. But the wisdom realizing emptiness requires the virtue of the other causes to be accumulated. But we mustn't leave it there. We need to also cultivate the wisdom realizing emptiness. The other causes do lead to a great meaning or purpose being achieved in that one attains another good rebirth. One does not fall to the lower realms. And hopefully the further good rebirth will allow us to continue our spiritual journey and eventually come to realize emptiness, which is indispensable. Because if we don't realize emptiness, we will not bring an end to our own suffering, nor will we develop the supreme capacity to have a transformative impact on limitless beings. Therefore, we have to strive to cultivate the wisdom realizing emptiness. To summarize the three verses we've looked at tonight, then, these three practices depend on the mind. That firstly, we looked at enthusiastic perseverance, which is something we need to intentionally cultivate in relation to all our virtuous activities. And we do so through focusing on the benefits, not just a mere occasional recitation of the benefits of a particular virtuous quality, but reflecting on them again and again to lead to a heartfelt yearning, then we will be enthusiastic about persevering sufficiently to cultivate that excellent quality. And then secondly, we looked at amongst the excellent qualities that are indispensable are those of the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. To develop this, enthusiastic perseverance is indispensable. And the great benefits that comes from the union of calm abiding and meditative insight is that the virtue that we accumulate is so much more powerful. There it was said quite clearly that without this powerful, focused mind, the virtue we accumulate is insignificant, inadequate. And thirdly, we looked at we have to strive to come to understand reality. Without realizing emptiness, we will not be able to achieve the supreme meaning of the Dharma. We will not be able to experience the supreme meaning of the Dharma. Liberation from suffering and a freedom from all our pain and misery will not come about, nor will our attainment of Buddhahood for the sake of others. Therefore, we also need to strive to cultivate the wisdom realizing emptiness. Then we've concluded a section from Shantideva on showing how the six perfections, or maybe we could say completing our training in these six practices, in these six perfections, all depend on the mind. To complete our training in each of the six depends on our mind, not on anything external to our mind. So next week we'll start a new section in this chapter, which again brings the focus directly back to mindfulness and vigilance in how one utilizes them to guard the mind.
All right, that's the test.
Then thank you very much. And we can conclude there for tonight. Thank you very much.